Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wrestling with a question that really touches every single aspect of our existence.
It's a big one.
It is. How does the language you speak, the structure, the vocabulary, the grammar, how does it actually shape the way you think and perceive reality?
It's the ultimate linguistic puzzle, isn't it? We tend to think of language as just this transparent tool, something we use to label thoughts that are already there.
Right, just a set of labels.
But the more you dig into it, the more you find evidence that its influence is, well, far deeper. It's more like a cognitive filter that subtly directs how we notice and categorize the world.
That sounds profound. And our goal in this deep dive is to really unpack that. We want to move beyond just the philosophical idea and get into the specific, measurable ways it happens.
We're looking for those surprising details, those unexpected connections.
Exactly. And hopefully encourage you, our listener, to think a little more critically about the linguistic lens you're viewing reality through.
So a good place to start is, well, it has to be the beginning. The foundational debate in this field that really put this question on the map.
The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Named, of course, for the linguists Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf. And their idea was pretty radical.
Oh, very.
They said language doesn't just mirror reality. They proposed it might actively shape how its speakers perceive and even think about that reality.
And it's so crucial to understand that this idea exists on a spectrum. There are two versions, really.
The strong and the weak.
Exactly. The strongest, most extreme position is what we call linguistic determinism.
Okay.
And this version basically said that language entirely dictates and sets the absolute boundaries of your thought. I mean, if your language didn't have a word for a concept, you simply couldn't grasp it.
I can see why that's an appealing idea, but it also feels so restrictive, like we're completely caged by our vocabulary. Does the research actually support that?
Not really, no. That's why the strong version is largely rejected today.
Yeah.
We just see too much evidence to the contrary. Humans can think about concepts that are incredibly difficult to put into words.
Like artists or musicians?
Exactly, or scientists inventing new terms for new discoveries. So no, thought is not strictly caged by language in that sense.
So that brings us to the more modern, accepted view. The weaker version.
Linguistic relativity.
Right.
And this is the key distinction. Relativity doesn't say language determines thought, but that it influences it. It guides you, it biases you, it makes certain ways of thinking more habitual.
It nudges your thinking rather than locking it down.
A perfect way to put it. It's about preference and processing efficiency, not about what's possible.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Where does this influence actually show up in a measurable way? Whorf himself got the ball rolling with his controversial study on Hopi time.
Right. And to understand it, just think about English. We are obsessed with linear tense markers, past, present, future.
We partition time. We see it as a line.
We spend time, we run out of time. It's a quantifiable thing.
And Whorf's idea was that the Hopi language handled it differently.
He suggested their grammar focused much more on things like duration, intensity, the ongoing cyclical nature of events, rather than these neat little boxes of past, present, and future.
So the idea was this might encourage a different cognitive feel for time, more like a continuous unfolding process.
Exactly. Now, to be fair, his specific analysis of Hopi grammar has been heavily debated since then. But the core principle that your grammatical habits can influence how you frame something as abstract as time, that idea really stuck.
And modern science has found much more compelling evidence. I'm thinking of Lera Boroditsky's research on spatial metaphors for time.
Oh, this is fascinating.
It is, because for us as English speakers,
It's all horizontal. We look forward to the future. The deadline is ahead of us. We think back on the past.
it's a timeline, left to right.
But not all languages do that. Mandarin Chinese is a fantastic contrast. They can use horizontal metaphors, sure, but they also very commonly use vertical ones.
Vertical, how does that work?
The word for up, sheng, can refer to the previous week. The word for down, xia, can refer to the next week.
So they're stacking time, not laying it out in a line.
In a sense, yes. It literally flips our usual spatial mapping of time.
Okay, so that's the linguistic habit. But how do you test if it actually changes how people think? That's the real aha moment.
They set up a really simple task. They'd asked Mandarin and English speakers time-related questions like, does March come before April? While showing them visual prompts.
Okay.
And they found Mandarin speakers were consistently, measurably faster at answering those questions if the visuals were arranged vertically.
And English speakers.
Faster when the visuals were horizontal.
Wow. So the subtle, habitual linguistic framing.
Mm-hmm.
Vertical in Mandarin, horizontal in English. It actually changes how quickly your brain processes information when space and time overlap.
It's a demonstrable difference in cognitive efficiency. That's the power of linguistic relativity right there.
Okay, so if language can nudge our perception of time, let's look at physical space. I want to talk about the Gugu Yamathir language from Australia. This one, to me, is just mind-blowing.
It is an incredible example, where we in English rely on egocentric terms, left of me, right of you, behind the chair.
It's all relative to our own body.
Exactly. Gugu Yamathir speakers use cardinal directions. North, south, east, west, almost exclusively.
For everything.
Yeah.
Even for small-scale space.
Everything. They wouldn't say the ant is crawling on your left leg. They would say something like the ant is crawling south on your leg.
So you have to know which way is south at all times.
You do. Imagine the constant cognitive demand that imposes. You have to maintain absolute spatial orientation 24/7, indoors, outdoors, in the dark.
And Stephen Levinson's research on this.
Yeah.
What was the cognitive consequence?
The consequence is that this requirement acts as a constant daily training regimen for their spatial reasoning.
Like a muscle.
Precisely. Levinson found they have extraordinary navigational abilities. They're amazing at things like dead reckoning, knowing exactly where they are without landmarks, because their language makes it impossible not to pay attention.
So their grammar for space fundamentally rewires their moment-to-moment spatial awareness. Okay, so if language can do that for something as fundamental as direction, what about something seemingly simpler, like, say, color?
That brings us right to vocabulary and the classic color example, comparing English to Russian. In English, we basically have one word for blue.
Right. Blue. We might say light blue or dark blue, but it's still blue.
But in Russian, that's not the case. They make a mandatory distinction. There's goluboi for lighter blues and sini for darker blues.
And they're not just shades of the same color.
Nope. They're considered two separate basic color categories, like red and pink for us.
And again, Broditsky's research showed this had measurable effects on perception.
Right. It did. They found that Russian speakers were measurably faster at telling two shades of blue apart, if those shades happened to cross that linguistic boundary. One was sinari and one was goluboi.
But English speakers, looking at the exact same shades, didn't get that speed boost.
None at all. For us, they were just two blues. For them, the linguistic boundaries sharpened their perceptual sensitivity right at that dividing line. It literally teaches your visual system what to pay attention to.
That's incredible. Okay, let's shift from vocabulary to grammar, the mandatory rules. This feels even more, insidious. Let's start with grammatical gender.
Yes, the famous bridge study.
The German and Spanish bridge study, right?
So this study looks at how speakers describe an object that has an arbitrary grammatical gender. In German, the word for bridge, der Brücke, is feminine.
Okay.
In Spanish, the word el puente is masculine.
And when researchers asked native speakers to just describe a bridge, they found a very predictable split.
Absolutely. German speakers whose noun was feminine tended to use adjectives like beautiful, elegant, slender.
And the Spanish speakers.
They used words like strong, sturdy, tall, dangerous.
Wait a minute. So the completely arbitrary linguistic gender of a noun in your language suddenly biases how you conceptually grasp that object. You attach human gendered traits to an inanimate thing just because your grammar tells you to.
It's a conceptual nuance that's just built right into the language. It's not that a German speaker consciously thinks this bridge is a woman.
Of course not.
But that mandatory grammatical feature acts as a continuous, subtle little push in how they think about and describe it.
Let's do one more grammatical structure. Evidentiality in Turkish.
This is a fantastic example of what some call grammaticalized cognition.
Can I explain that?
In Turkish, when you use a verb, the ending itself has to specify how you know the information.
How you know it.
Yes. Did you witness the event directly with your own eyes? Did you infer it from some evidence, or did someone else just tell you about it?
So you can't just say he left.
You can't. You have to say, he left and I saw it, or he left, I infer, or he left, I hear. It's baked into the verb itself.
The cognitive implication there is huge.
It is. This constant grammatical requirement may naturally foster a heightened sensitivity to evidence, to information sourcing, to reliability in Turkish speakers.
Okay, let's widen the scope. Let's talk about language as a cultural lens. This is where you really see values embedded in idioms and metaphors.
A perfect example is the English idiom, time is money.
It's everywhere.
It is. And that phrase, used over and over, reinforces our cultural emphasis on time as a finite commodity, something to be spent, saved, or wasted.
Which is very different from cultures that don't have that direct linguistic link.
Or think about the root-based morphology in Arabic. The root KTB links words like kitab, book, katib, writer, and maktab, office.
It connects them all.
It emphasizes the interconnectedness of concepts from a common source, and it's been argued this might foster a more holistic way of thinking in speakers.
And this brings us to those fascinating, untranslatable emotion words. We all know Schadenfreude, but what about something like Portuguese saudade?
Exactly. Saudade. It's that deep, melancholic longing for a person, a place, a feeling that might never return.
Or the Danish word hygge.
Right, that feeling of cozy contentment from enjoying the simple things. If you don't have a single word for that experience, it can remain a bit fuzzy.
But because those languages have a single defined label, the feeling itself becomes more salient, more recognizable, easier to talk about.
It connects directly to Lisa Feldman Barrett's work on emotional granularity. She found that people who have a richer, more nuanced emotional vocabulary, which is provided in part by their language, are measurably better at distinguishing between their feelings.
So having a precise word for, say, saudade, lets you recognize that specific shade of longing better than just saying, I feel sad.
And that's correlated with better emotional regulation and psychological well-being. The ability to label a feeling is the first step toward managing it.
That is profound. Okay, so what happens when you speak more than one language? This moves the discussion right to you, the listener, if you're multilingual.
Multilingualism adds this whole other fascinating dimension. It's not just about knowing more words, it's about operating with multiple cognitive filters at the same time.
And the research here shows pretty consistently enhanced executive functions.
Yes. The brain's high-level control systems. The air traffic control for your thoughts.
So better multitasking, better task switching, better inhibitory control.
Because you're doing these constant mental gymnastics, deciding which language to use, suppressing the other one. It's a continuous, high-level cognitive workout.
And that workout seems to build something called cognitive reserve.
According to research by Ellen Bialystock, yes, multilingualism seems to build resilience in the brain. Some studies suggest it might even delay the clinical symptoms of dementia or cognitive decline. It acts as a buffer.
That is a major finding for aging and cognitive health. And finally, you gain something called metalinguistic awareness.
Which is really the self-reflection piece. If you have direct experience with two different grammars, one that uses horizontal time and one that uses vertical time, let's say, you become inherently aware of linguistic relativity.
You stop seeing language as a natural law and start seeing it as one of many possible systems.
A choice, a framework.
And this knowledge has real, practical applications for you. Academically, you become a much better critical reader. You start to notice cultural biases embedded in phrasing.
Professionally, it's huge for intercultural competence. You can achieve true semantic alignment in a global team, avoiding those misunderstandings that happen when people use the same word but mean subtly different things.
And personally, it just leads to greater self-awareness and empathy. You recognize the filter your own language imposes, and you can appreciate that others are looking at the world through a slightly different one.
Now, we do have to acknowledge the ongoing debate. Critics, the cognitive universalists, would argue that the basic thinking machinery is the same for everyone.
The hardware is universal.
Right. Language is just the software you load onto it. And it's also vital to remember this research points to cognitive tendencies, not deterministic rules.
A crucial ethical caution. We have to avoid linguistic stereotyping.
Absolutely. Individual experience is shaped by so much more than just a person's native language.
Okay, so to wrap this up,
I think we've seen that language is not a passive tool. It's an active, dynamic partner in the thinking process. It subtly shapes how we categorize reality, structure our perceptions, and even approach problem solving.
grappling with these ideas really does deepen your linguistic mastery and enhance cultural competence. But that leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to carry forward.
Given the constant accelerating evolution of language driven by globalization, social media, AI, how might the very way we think, our collective human cognition, continue to transform in the coming years?
And what does that mean for our ability to understand each other across these growing linguistic and technological divides? That ongoing transformation places you right at the forefront of the evolution of human thought. Understanding the filters we use is the key to navigating it.